Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
Hello and welcome back to your Daily Detroit. You know, on this show, we dive deep into the stories that shape our city, our region, and the state of Michigan. From the future of the auto industry and fun places to find food, to the development happening around our region, transit, and the debates over how we're building our future. Today, we're tackling a topic that, well, intersects many of these: environmental policy and its impact on our economy and quality of life. Can we even imagine Michigan without nature? For this episode on Wednesday, June 25th, 2025, I sit down with Phil Roos, the director of EGLE, the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy for the state of Michigan, to talk about how Michigan is transforming brownfields, protecting the Great Lakes, and facing some tough choices about environmental funding. Thanks as always to our members on Patreon, patreon.com/dailydetroit, who get member-only benefits like swag, access to our online community chat on Discord, and our everlasting thanks. Without you, this simply would not be possible. Feedback, as always, dailydetroit@gmail.com. Got tons of feedback around yesterday's show already. And as always, if you've got questions about Detroit, Metro Detroit, or Michigan you want answered, just let me know. All right, let's jump into this conversation. Joining us at the table at the Grand Hotel at the 2025 Mackinac Policy Conference is Phil Roos. He's the director of EGLE, the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy for the state of Michigan. I want to say that I say EGLE, but I know that there's a long time debate with some listeners of the show. Is it EGLE or EGLE?
We call it EGLE, but we invite people to call it whatever they want. Whatever.
Well, it's like either bird or breakfast food. Like EGLE, like Eggo.
Yeah, that's right. Closer to the soaring eagle, I guess.
Soaring, there you go. That goes with nature, right?
Right.
I don't think you find Eggos like in nature.
Not commonly.
No, they don't grow on trees. Well, I'm glad to have you by because the environment's such an important topic to listeners and people who, when you choose Michigan, you're choosing it in part because of the environment, right?
Yeah, it's a really special place. It's the only state in the country. I've been all over the country, and you probably have as well, but it's the only place where people hold up their hand and point to where they are. We're literally defined by the lakes, and I think it's a big part of our identity.
So do you feel like it's a pretty great responsibility to be in this particular role where the water and the environment is such an important thing?
It's really humbling. That's one of the first things that hit me a little bit, almost 2 years ago when I started in this role. When I toured around the state, saw the work that we were doing, I realized it really touches people's, all 10 million Michiganders' lives in a kind of intimate way every day. The air you breathe, the water you drink, and so forth. And it's great responsibility that comes with that.
Yeah. So you've been having your hands in a lot of things lately, and we could go in a lot of different directions. I think first I want to talk about Brownfield Redevelopment a little bit, and people might not realize that you're tied into that because it's a tool so often used in Detroit and Metro Detroit around development and getting these properties back. It's something where, what is the role that EGLE plays in this, and what is the importance of these programs from your perspective?
It's really foundational, and it's one of the programs that probably has the biggest economic impact. That's one thing I discover is almost everything that we do that where we're doing something environmental protection related, there's usually an economic benefit, jobs, saving money on energy bills, whatever it might be. And I think that's exemplified by the Brownfield Redevelopment Program. In the last few years, I think it's over 400 properties in the state have been redeveloped. And what we do is we work with somebody who wants to develop a property, turn it into a park or a school, after-school program, or whatever it might be, affordable housing. And we de-risk the investment by providing grants and loans that allow them to pursue the cleanup of the site to make it so they can redevelop it. The result of that is that for every dollar we put in, an average of $45 in private investment is put in. So it's an enormous return on investment for the people of the state of Michigan, and we know the impact it can have, cleaning up blight and creating lots of jobs as well.
And one thing about that I have learned talking to developers is that without those credits, without that program, a lot of these properties might still sit empty, and they might say choose Greenfield or choose or not even do the project at all, because without some support to get this transformation happening, to get the wheels turning, it really helps the numbers make sense.
That's so true. It gets them over that first piece of where you got to risk a lot of money on something that you don't know what you're getting into. You're not sure you can clean it up. And I think that point you're talking about is really, it becomes a linchpin for other development and other good things around it. In the Detroit area right now, I think we got in the city of Detroit like 12 projects. One of them is completing the Riverwalk area in the Centennial Park. So if you don't have that linchpin, that piece that's the brownfield cleanup, you don't have the whole thing coming together. And there's so many affordable housing and other projects where that's really the case.
So is it in the form of credits or like how does this materialize into actually getting the spot cleaned up and redone? Like what's the mechanism?
Yeah, well, so we're almost like in venture capital or investment. We're the first people in. So you got to clean up the site first. So grants or loans, whatever's appropriate. We have statutory limits on what we can do. We're looking to expand those so that we can have a bigger impact. Then there can also be tax increment financing that the city or the municipality might put in. And often we'll have other grants from Michigan Economic Development Corporation or other entities that will help along the way. And the result is you just jumpstart the effort and you take a lot of the risk away. But most of the money is always private money.
Well, it sounds like a win-win because not only do you get a development, but you get a clean site, right? You want that site to be clean, regardless of what happens to it. It's a great way to be that catalyst to get that thing done, as opposed to just sitting there,
Yeah, it's win-win-win for everybody. It's just a big impact.
Yeah. So one thing that I talked a little bit actually with Senator Gary Peters about was the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. But, if we touch on so many topics with him, and you're an expert. So let's talk about this a little bit more and what exactly is the GLRI and why is it's so an important thing?
Yeah, it's bipartisan funding that has come from Congress to address what they call areas of concern, sites that need to be cleaned up to really protect our Great Lakes and all the people who depend on it for clean drinking water, for recreation, for our economy. So there are a number of sites around the Great Lakes region. A number of these have been cleaned up. There are many more on the docket. One of the big areas in this area of concern is around the Detroit River and the Rouge River. And there are a number of those sites that right now we are moving forward with the first stage, which is to really assess what's it going to take to clean them up. And then there is a great deal of federal money that's connected to that really allows us to get the cleanup done. Because some of these can run into the millions of dollars.
Yeah, and that ties into the transformation of Detroit's riverfront has been stunning. That whole area, and we talk about the city often, but that whole area has seen so many improvements over recent years.
Yeah, no, it's true. And the Brownfield Redevelopment program is part of that, the GLRI program, and just a lot of the great work that the city's been doing to. Yeah,
and habitat restoration as well, as I understand it, right?
That's right. There are a lot of projects like that all around the region, but particularly around the river.
Yeah. It's something that environment is such an important priority for our state, but sometimes they're not always the priority for everybody else. And we are in an era of people really focusing on cuts and what can they cut and where can they cut. And I understand that there are some proposals that might hinder some of the work that you're doing on the federal level.
Yeah, no, that's really true. And I would say that in a couple areas. One is water infrastructure, which is such a big priority for the state. It's been a federal priority as well because we have drinking water and wastewater treatment plants that are 50, 100 years old. And the state has, under Governor Whitmer's leadership, has put over $5 billion into grants and loans that have really started to transform that infrastructure and guarantee safe drinking water and protection for our lakes, rivers, and streams well into the future. Last year it was $1.7 billion at statewide, but the demand for that is 2 or 3 times that level.
Really?
So we really rely on continued support from the federal government. The governor, in her recommended budget this year, has called for $80 million in state spending that's largely designed to draw down federal money that would be available for lead service line removal, which has been such an important thing in the city of Detroit So it's done very strategically in a matching way. And we have something called the State Revolving Fund that is the main vehicle by which we make these investments. And President Trump, I guess in his initial recommendation, was to pretty much zero out that the capitalization grants, the annual amount that is put into that funding. And I could just say that would have a big impact. That would really slow our efforts to move things forward. So I hopefully there'll be a lot of opposition in the U.S. Senate for that, because a lot of communities depend upon it.
Yeah, what would be missing? What would be missing? What would we miss out on if that does not get approved?
Well, we have the State Revolving Fund, and you capitalize it. Money is put into it.
Okay.
87% of the capitalization has come from the federal government.
Gotcha.
In this year, $90 million, more than what the state is contributing, goes into that. And if that goes away, it basically cuts the amount that we're adding to the program in half. We have a corpus, we have an existing fund, so we can continue to give grants and loans, but certainly not at the level that we've been doing. So a lot of communities will be affected.
Well, I appreciate you walking through that with me, because I think the average person goes through their life and they hear so many things bombarding them about what's this cut or what's this thing or what's this priority. Walking through and saying, okay, this is what it's going to do and this is why it matters, I think really helps people be advocates for what's going on.
Well, that's great. And I if you don't mind, I'd just share one other area. We call them capitalization grants, again, so just to be confusing. The work that when EPA was originally set up, the idea was to delegate about 80 to 90% of the regulatory and environmental protection work to the states. And funding was provided, a base level of funding that made that possible in a way, areas where the states couldn't have been able to afford that. That has been proposed to be almost zeroed out. Only a couple programs that would remain. So that means longer permitting times, that means fewer inspections, that means inability to keep on top of certain issues just because we'd be spread much more thinly. So that's another area which I really hope dearly that doesn't come close to happening.
Well, and there is evidence of bipartisan work coming together around the environment, because when it comes to brass tacks, elected leaders know no matter what party you're in, nobody wants to mess with water. Nobody wants to mess with these things, especially here.
Oh, that's so true. In every single community, there is an essential water project, a dam that we got to make sure doesn't fail. It might be a new wastewater treatment plant that's needed, and stormwater has been a much bigger issue in Southeast Michigan. So that's one thing I found. It doesn't matter what party you're in. If something's happening in your community, you care about it. And then I think we realize that it's a problem we all share and need to be committed to.
Makes it very real and very, very practical. So I guess I'll end with this. This is an important agency. It's important work that you're doing. What is it in the next year that you're excited about or want to see happen in your Phil vision board of, the next year? What are you excited about? What should people be interested in following with EGLE?
Yeah, well, it's a handful of things. Water infrastructure, a key priority. We got to keep moving on that because we are going to pay for it one way or the other, and it's better to do it before something breaks. Cleaning up and preventing contamination, and that's where the Brownfield Redevelopment program plays a key role. Bringing the benefits of the clean energy transformation to everyday Michiganders, so they have a chance to save money on their energy bills, have more comfort in their house, if they own their home, be able to resell it. So we have the My Home Energy Rebate Program, that's michigan.gov/home energy rebates, where people can apply for that and save up to the potential of $34,000 for home weatherization.
That's not nothing.
No, that's not nothing.
That's significant.
And we have a Solar for All program that's also part of that. And just the final thing I'd mention is we're doing a lot to just modernize the work of the agency and of government in general, trying to digitize all our records and make them transparent, trying to speed up permitting times, cut through red tape, but always provide the level of environmental protection we need.
Well, Phil Roos, the director of EGLE, the Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, and I promise I will not swap energy and environment. I'll get it all right in the right order.
Jerry, you can do whatever you want. We support you.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming by the table, and talk soon.
Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to Your Daily Detroit. You can do us a favor and tell a friend about the show. Word of mouth is the best way to push Detroit forward. And you know what? I thank you so much when you tell a friend, send an email, put it out on social media, send a text. It really does help. The more people who know what we're doing, the better. All right, with that, I'm Jer Stays. Thank you so much for listening. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll talk tomorrow.